Welcome back to Android Q&A. My name is Jayce, and today, my friends, I am on a mission. That's right. I, Jayce, will strive to lead the Android army to improve our beloved Android. Now, I love Android, but I am going to say some things today that will upset some Android-loving geeks. But it needs to be said, so here we go. Okay, you see this? This is the iPhone. No, it's the original iPhone. The phone is 7 years old. My wife still uses this phone today. Why? Because it works, and it's fast, and it's reliable. No, you can't play Angry Birds or a lot of other, more current iOS apps on it, but it does everything she needs to do. She texts, she browses, and she does emails and makes phone calls. And it does that just about as well as it did 7 years ago. You see this? My Galaxy Note? It's only 3 years old, and it doesn't do anything as well as the iPhone does. Yeah, I know. Host of Android Authority just said that an iPhone that's 7 years old is better than a much more recent Android phablet. Yeah. You know why? Because Android sucks on older phones and entry-level phones. You see, I had the privilege to travel to over 19 countries around the world, and many of those countries were poor developing countries. I'd be in a village where there was nothing but mud huts. But in addition to those mud huts, they often had a cell phone. And this was way back in the late 90s. There would be one elder in the community who would manage the use of some sort of mobile phone. And this mobile phone became like the center of the community socially. Not only would they use it to make phone calls, but they would use it to make banking transactions. It became a social center that the community would rally around. So much of the developing world have just passed over the PC revolution and are now knee-deep in the mobile revolution. Hence the huge demand for smartphones right around the world. There's huge demand, and right now, Android isn't meeting that need very well. And right behind Android's heels are the Chinese manufacturers who are exceedingly good at producing sufficient quality electronic devices at scale. China's also invested millions of dollars in alternative operating systems. If Android continues to leave themselves vulnerable, those Chinese companies are going to exploit that. I know I would if I were them. Android needs to fix that. Number 2 is a direct line to Google services. So for example, if I need to set an appointment for another meeting so I don't forget, I first have to wake the device, unlock it or enter my password, then select the app that I want to use, wait for it to load of course, and then input that data. Now, those are the steps or barriers that's put in between me and the task that I want to complete with my phone. Now, Google Now, of course, is an attempt to reduce all of that just to voice dictation or voice recognition, which works fantastic on flagship-powered phones. The vast majority of those billion-plus users that Google touted at Google I/O last year, those people aren't using, KitKat. They aren't using Nexus 5s or the Note 3. They're using, sub $125 powered Android devices. And they don't use those Google products very well, if at all. So for people like me who are very ADD and fast-paced, I want those barriers removed so I can just tell the phone what I need it to do and get it done now and not have to fiddle with a whole bunch of steps in between. Number 3, privacy management. Now, of course, this is all tied into what has got to be the biggest news story of last year, regardless of your interest or niche, and that was the privacy infringements on behalf of the American NSA, the National Security Agency. Now, I don't want to blame just the US because there's evidence to believe that many countries' intelligence agencies are doing the very same thing, but they are watching everything we do on our phones, on our browsers, everything, not just suspected terrorists and not just, suspected suspicious activity, but like everyone for everything. And Google does allow us to manage our privacy at least a little bit. If you go to your account on Google, you'll see there are some options to manage and control your data and control how Google uses that data, but it's limited. Now, for those of you who don't know, Google makes their billions of dollars a year on selling relevant ads to you and me. And those are relevant ads because they know what we do. They know what we search for, they know what we watch, they know what we don't watch, and they target their ads to make those ads most relevant to our interests. And that's fine, I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great business model, but let me manage that data and my personal privacy much more than we are now. And that is going to go really far to making more people feel comfortable about using Android. Number 4 is fragmentation. Now, before you roll your eyes, I know that this is a tired, exhausted subject where many tech pundits have overused the term fragmentation, so I'm not going to go into detail here other than to say that if you watch this show right here, I did go into detail about why Android updates take so long and how fragmentation plays a role in that. You may want to check that out. There's also another show this week where I talk about that. Check it out. That's number 4. Number 5 is Google Play cards. Now I know when I've talked about this in the past, many of you had said that Google Play stores are readily available, but I want to point out that I can go to any corner store or kiosk, I think anywhere I've ever been, and buy a prepaid phone card. That's what I mean by being accessible. These Google Play cards, if they are really accessible at every possible store or kiosk, it is going to make it much easier for developers to make more money on Android and thereby give, a more fuller Android experience to Android users wherever they are. Because most of the world, in the developing world, they don't use credit cards like we do here. Almost everyone's got a credit card. Heck, some, students have credit cards. And so it makes it easy for us to use iTunes and the Google Play Store. But for the rest of the world, that is really restrictive. So we need those Google Play Store gift cards everywhere, and it will make developers happy and users happy. All right, Android Army, your homework for this week's Q&A is, if you think I am full of it or you think I missed something, please put it in the comments below. What do you think needs to be done to improve our beloved Android? Here's what I am going to do. I am going to put 5 comments under my own name in the comments below, 1 for each point that I mentioned that needs to be done to improve Android. If you agree with them, thumb them up. If you disagree, thumb them down. I will also thumb up or thumb down your own suggestions, and we will see which person's suggestions rise to the top. The first non-Android authority host that has the highest thumbs up will win this week's t-shirt. Love to connect with you here on Google Plus or Android. You don't want to forget about my brothers in Android, Josh, Joe, and the Tech Ninja Kevin, and of course Chris. I shall talk to you next show on Android's Q&A.